She stepped down from the train and felt the sting before she felt the shame. Blood soaked through the split sole of her left shoe and smeared the wooden platform. Someone nearby gasped. Someone else looked away. Evelyn Rosehart kept her chin lifted anyway. She had crossed a continent for this moment. She would not crumble now. She scanned the crowd with a heart already breaking, searching for the one face that was supposed to be hers. And when she finally saw him standing clean and untouched by struggle, she knew before he spoke that everything she believed was about to be taken from her. The conductor's voice still rang in her ears as the train hissed and groaned behind her. 10-minute stop. Red Fields Station. Wyoming Territory. Evelyn stood frozen on the platform, one hand gripping her small leather case, the other clenched tight to keep from shaking. The case had belonged to her mother. The shoes on her feet had once belonged to Hope. They had been good shoes once. Brown leather. Sturdy, bought when her father was still alive, and the world had rules that made sense. Now the leather gaped open at the sides, held together with twine. The sole of the left one had torn completely during the last transfer, and she had wrapped it tight, teeth clenched, refusing to cry. She told herself not to look down. She told herself not to feel the blood. This was the end of running. This was the beginning she had been promised. Evelyn lifted her eyes and searched the platform. Men stood in loose clusters, ranch hands, shopkeepers, a few curious townsfolk who treated every arrival like free entertainment. Women whispered behind gloved hands. Children stared openly. Then she saw him. Charles Whitmore stood near the station office, exactly as described in his letters. Tall, well-groomed, a gray suit pressed sharp as pride. A silver watch chain gleamed across his vest. He looked like a man who had never gone hungry. Her heart leapt, despite everything. Despite the ache in her feet, despite the gnawing fear in her chest. She stepped forward. Each movement sent pain up her leg, but she walked anyway. She had walked farther than this. She had buried parents. She had survived winters that nearly killed her. This man would not undo her. When she was close enough to see the neat part in his hair, she spoke. Her voice was soft, but steady. "Charles!" He looked up, and in that single second, she watched recognition bloom, then die. His eyes traveled over her face, her patched dress, her battered case. And finally, her shoes. The silence stretched. It grew heavy. "I'm Evelyn," she said quickly. "Evelyn Hart, from Ohio. I got your letters." For a moment she thought he might smile, thought he might step forward. Instead, his expression cooled. "I don't believe you have the right man," he said. The words struck like a slap. Her breath left her lungs. "I'm sorry." "I don't know you," Charles said, adjusting his cuff as if bored. "You must be mistaken." "Mistaken." Her fingers tightened around the letters in her coat pocket. "I'm not. You wrote to me for 6 months. You sent the fare. You said—" "I said nothing to you." He cut in, louder now. Heads turned, whispers stirred. "You're causing a scene," he continued, his voice polished and cold. "Whatever misfortune led you here is unfortunate, but it has nothing to do with me." Heat flooded her face. Shame burned sharper than the pain in her feet. "Please," she said, hating the word even as it escaped. "I have nowhere else to go." Something flickered in his eyes. Not mercy. Calculation. "I require a wife who can present herself properly," he said, glancing once more at her shoes. "This is not what I agreed to." That was when something inside her broke clean through. "I see," she whispered. He nodded once, satisfied, and turned away. The sound of his polished shoes echoed against the platform as he walked off, each step final. The train behind her lurched forward, steam billowing, carrying away the last path back. Evelyn stood alone. Blood darkened the wood beneath her feet. Her letters trembled in her hand. The crowd did not rush to help. They never did. She bent to lift her case, and dizziness washed over her. Hunger, exhaustion, shock. This was how a woman disappeared. Then boots sounded behind her. Slow, steady. They stopped close. Miss. The voice was low, unpolished, real. Evelyn forced herself to look up. The man before her wore no fine suit, just work-worn denim, a faded shirt, and a hat held respectfully in his hands. His face was weathered, lined by wind and sun, but his eyes held no pity, only attention. He glanced down at her shoes, at the blood. Then he looked back at her. "Those shoes bring you a long way?" The question caught her off guard. 2,000 miles, she said before she could stop herself. He nodded, as if that answered something important. "Seems to me," he said slowly, "they did their job." Her throat tightened. "My name's Samuel Boone," he continued. "I've got a ranch north of town, nothing fancy, but it's warm and safe." She stared at him, at this stranger offering shelter without condition. "Why?" she asked, suspicion sharp. Samuel's jaw worked once before he answered. "Because I've seen what happens when folks turn away." The wind swept across the platform, carrying dust and silence. Evelyn looked at the man who had rejected her, then at the man standing before her. And for the first time since stepping off the train, she felt something stir beneath the fear. Not hope, something steadier. Evelyn did not answer right away. The word safe sounded too fragile to trust. She stood on the platform while the last hiss of steam faded into the prairie air. The town of Redfield settled back into itself, already done watching her fall. "I don't want charity," she said finally. Her voice surprised her with its strength. "I didn't offer charity," the man replied. "I offered shelter." Samuel Boone waited. He did not rush her, did not soften his offer or dress it up with promises. She looked down at her shoes at the dark stain spreading beneath them. Then she looked back at him. "My name is Evelyn Rose Hart," she said carefully, as if stating terms. "I'm 24. I can cook, sew, read, and keep accounts. I'll work for my keep." A corner of his mouth lifted. "Fair enough," he said. They left the platform together. Samuel walked at her pace, slowing without comment when her limp worsened. He led a bay horse by the reins, choosing the dirt road instead of mounting. The town watched. Evelyn felt their eyes, their assumptions, their stories already forming. She kept her head high. They stopped at a general store near the edge of town. Samuel spoke quietly to the shopkeeper, who eyed Evelyn's feet and said nothing. A pair of plain work boots appeared on the counter. Thick soles. Real leather. Evelyn swallowed. "I'll pay you back," she said. Samuel nodded once. "When you're able." The boots felt heavy, solid. They held her like something meant to last. They walked north as the sun slid lower. Prairie rolled wide and open, gold fading into blue. The ranch appeared slowly, a modest house tucked between cottonwoods, a barn leaning but strong. Not impressive, honest. "This is home," Samuel said simply. Inside, the air smelled of wood smoke and old books. A lamp glowed warm against gathering dark. "There's stew," he added. "You look like you haven't eaten." Her stomach answered for her. She ate slowly, hands shaking despite herself. Each bite grounded her a little more. Samuel did not stare, did not ask questions. Afterward, he showed her a small guest room. "Clean, quiet, you can rest," he said. "We'll talk tomorrow." She sat on the bed after he left, boots placed neatly by the door. Her old shoes lay wrapped in paper on the dresser. For the first time since her parents died, Evelyn let herself cry. Morning came cold and pale. Evelyn woke to the sound of movement in the main room and the smell of coffee. She washed her face in cold water, braided her hair, and stepped out. Samuel stood at the stove, sleeves rolled, movements practiced. He glanced up. "You sleep?" "Yes." Better than she had in weeks. They ate in quiet companionship. After, Samuel cleared his throat. "We should talk arrangements." Evelyn straightened. "I'll earn my place." "However you need." "I need someone to help keep this place from falling apart," he said. "Cooking, cleaning, garden work, nothing more." Relief washed through her. "That's fair." He hesitated. "One rule. If anyone comes by while I'm out, you find me first." She nodded. She understood what it meant to be a woman alone. Samuel left to mend fence. Evelyn cleaned, grateful for something to do. She found books on the shelf, medical journals, a woman's handwriting in the margins. Samuel's mother, she guessed. She tended the garden until noon, hands finding rhythm in the soil. That was when she saw the rider. A man on horseback approached from the south. Not Samuel. Fear tightened her chest. She remembered his warning. Evelyn hurried across the field, boots steady, heart racing. She found Samuel stringing wire. "Someone's coming," she said. Samuel's posture changed instantly. "Stay behind me." They reached the house together. The rider dismounted slowly, older, stern. A badge glinted on his vest. "Samuel Boone," the man said. "Marshal Harlan." Samuel nodded. "What brings you out?" Quote. The marshal's eyes moved to Evelyn. "You the woman from the train?" She held his gaze. "Yes, sir." "Charles Whitmore came to my office," Harlan continued. "Said you harassed him, claimed false promises." Evelyn's chest tightened. "He's lying." "I figured," Harlan said dryly. "Got letters?" She ran for her case, returned shaking, and handed them over. The marshal read in silence, then compared them to a single page Whitmore had provided. "Different hand," Harlan said. He looked at Samuel. "He tried this before." Relief nearly buckled her knees. "I'll warn him off," the marshal said. "And Miss Hart, this town isn't all bad." After he left, Evelyn sat hard on the step. Samuel crouched nearby. "You all right?" She nodded. "He tried to erase me." Samuel's voice was steady. "He won't." They worked side by side that afternoon. Fences, garden, small tasks that rebuilt order. As evening fell, Evelyn felt something unfamiliar. Not safety yet, but possibility. She stood on the porch watching the sky darken. Samuel joined her, quiet as dusk. "Why did you help me?" she asked. He considered. "My mother came west with nothing. Someone helped her. I don't forget debts like that." The prairie wind moved through the cottonwoods. Evelyn looked at the house behind her, at the man beside her. She had arrived with torn shoes and no future. Now she had shelter. And time. That would have to be enough. For now, the days settled into a rhythm Evelyn had forgotten existed. Morning light. Honest work. Quiet meals. No one demanding more than she could give. She rose before dawn now, boots firm beneath her feet, hands steady as she stirred the fire and set coffee to boil. Samuel never commented on how quickly she learned the house. He simply made space for her to belong in it. They worked without ceremony. She cooked and cleaned. He repaired fences and tended stock. When one finished early, they helped the other without a word. At night, they sat by the fire. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they didn't. The silence was not empty. It was shared. Evelyn learned the land the way Samuel had, by watching it, how the sky warned before weather changed, how the cattle shifted when snow was coming, how the cottonwoods whispered long before the wind arrived. She learned the weight of honest tiredness, the kind that lets sleep come easy. One afternoon, Samuel handed her a small revolver. Her breath caught. "I don't know how to use that." "You will," he said calmly. "Out here, you should." They practiced behind the barn. Her first shot went wide. The second rattled her arm. Samuel nodded approval anyway. "You didn't flinch." By the end of the hour, she hit the bottle once. She laughed, surprised by the sound of it. "That's enough for today," he said. Strength comes with patience. Later that evening, as she washed dishes, Evelyn noticed him watching her reflection in the window. Not in a way that made her uncomfortable, in a way that made her aware. She dried her hands. "Something wrong?" "No," he said quietly. "Just thinking." She did not press. Sunday came clear and cold. The church bell rang across town like a challenge. "Do you want to go?" Samuel asked. Evelyn hesitated. Charles Whitmore would be there. So would the whispers. "I won't hide," she said finally. They rode in together. Heads turned. Judgment moved fast. Inside the church, Evelyn kept her eyes forward, her hands folded, her spine straight. She felt him before she saw him. Whitmore sat 3 rows back, polished as ever, a woman beside him dressed in silk. For the first time, Evelyn felt nothing. After the service, he approached. His smile was thin. "There's been confusion," he said smoothly. Samuel stepped forward. "There hasn't." Whitmore's eyes hardened. "You're making a mistake." Samuel's voice was low. "No, you did." The crowd watched. Whitmore retreated. Evelyn's knees shook only after he was gone. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yes," Samuel replied, "I did." The attack came 3 days later. Evelyn had walked to the creek to wash, the afternoon sun pale and weak. She was alone. She thought she was safe. The man stepped from the trees without sound, rough, mean-eyed. "You're the woman from town," he said. Fear struck hard and fast. She ran, slipped, fell. He caught her arm. She screamed. Samuel arrived like thunder. His fist ended the threat. His presence ended the rest. The man fled. The quiet returned. Evelyn shook for hours afterward, wrapped in Samuel's coat by the fire. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Stop," he said firmly. "This was not your fault." That night he left his door open. "Call if you need me." She slept. The next morning Samuel taught her to shoot again, longer this time, harder. "You don't live with fear," he told her. "You walk through it." She listened. She learned. The ranch changed her, not all at once, slowly. Strength came quietly. Weeks passed. Frost edged the mornings. The town still talked. Mrs. Caldwell from the hotel stopped Evelyn one afternoon. "You should come work for me," she said gently. "Living with him will ruin your reputation." Evelyn thanked her, said she would think. That night she did not sleep. Leaving would protect them both. Staying felt like truth. Samuel did not push. But she saw the worry he tried to hide. The unspoken question sat between them. Winter approached. And with it, a choice neither of them wanted to name. Evelyn stood on the porch one evening, watching the sky bruise purple and gray. Samuel joined her, close enough to warm. "Whatever you decide," he said softly, "I won't stop you." Her chest tightened. The land was quiet, the future was not. The storm arrived before the decision did. Snow came down hard and fast, swallowing the prairie in white silence. Wind rattled the walls and pressed against the house like a living thing. By noon, the road to town was gone. They were alone with it. Samuel barred the door and built the fire high. Evelyn wrapped herself in a shawl and watched the flames steady her breathing. For 3 days, the world shrank to the house. The barn was unreachable. The cattle huddled where they could. They cooked together, read aloud by lamplight, spoke of small things. On the 3rd night, the storm howled louder, as if angry to be ignored. Samuel sat at the table, hands folded, eyes distant. "I've been thinking," he said finally. Evelyn looked up. Her heart knew before her mind did. "About you leaving," he continued. "About town, about what people say." She swallowed. "I don't want to hurt you." "You wouldn't," he said. "But I don't want to be the reason you stay small." The words cut clean. "I'm not small here," she said softly. "I know," he replied, "but the world doesn't always see truth." Silence pressed in. Fire popped. She thought of Philadelphia, of narrow rooms and watched doors, of a life spent shrinking to survive. "I don't want to run again," she said. Samuel's gaze held hers. "I won't ask you to." The storm broke before dawn. 2 days later, Samuel rode out early to check the far pasture. Evelyn stayed behind, hands busy, mind restless. She was kneading dough when hoofbeats sounded outside. Her chest tightened. She wiped her hands and went to the door. Charles Whitmore stood there, hat in hand, face drawn. No carriage, no polish. "I need to speak with you," he said. Every instinct screamed no, but something colder answered yes. "You have 5 minutes," she said, standing firm. He stepped inside, eyes flicking to the simple room. This isn't what I expected." "It never is," she replied. He exhaled slowly. "I'm leaving town." She said nothing. "My engagement ended," he continued, "because of you." Her jaw tightened. "I deserve that," he added quickly. "I treated you cruelly. I lied." "Yes," she said. He flinched. "I wanted you to know I told the truth before I go," he said. "To the marshal, to others. I corrected what I said." "Why?" "Because I was wrong," he answered. "And because you were braver than I was." The words landed without comfort. "You took something from me," Evelyn said evenly. "You don't get to give it back with apologies." "I know," he said. "I just wanted you to hear it." She opened the door. "Goodbye, Mr. Whitmore." He hesitated, then left. The house felt lighter after. Samuel returned at dusk. Snow dusted his coat. She told him everything. He listened without interruption. When she finished, he nodded once. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she said. "I think I always needed to face him on my feet." That night the decision came quietly. Evelyn sat with Samuel by the fire. "No fear now, no running. I'm staying," she said. His breath left him slowly. "You're sure?" Quote. "Yes." He closed his eyes briefly, then looked at her with something unguarded. "I won't waste that," he said. Spring crept in behind winter's back. Snow melted. Life returned. Evelyn found herself changing again. Not just stronger, rooted. One morning, sickness came and did not leave. She knew before the doctor confirmed it. Samuel sat very still when she told him, then stood, then laughed once, broken and full. "We'll manage," he said. She believed him. They married on a clear Sunday with no grand plans, just vows spoken plainly, hands held firmly. Her boots were new. Her old shoes rested on a shelf at home. As winter faded for good, Evelyn stood on the porch with Samuel's arm around her, watching the land breathe again. She had arrived with nothing but torn shoes. Now she stood barefoot on solid ground. The past no longer chased her. The future no longer frightened her. Only one thing remained: to pass the kindness forward. Marriage did not soften the work. If anything, it sharpened it. Spring came late and hard, the land muddy and demanding. Evelyn rose each morning with aching muscles and a steadiness she had never known before. Samuel worked beside her now, not ahead of her, not behind. They learned the shape of each other's days. Who needed silence? Who needed words? Love, she discovered, was not loud. It was built from shared weight. The town adjusted slowly. Some nodded with approval. Others looked away. Evelyn no longer counted who did which. She had learned that respect did not arrive all at once. It came inch by inch. By summer, the ranch felt alive. Calves bawled in the fields. The garden grew thick and wild. Evelyn's hands moved easily now. She brewed salves, kept records, cooked meals that tasted like comfort instead of survival. Her body changed too, slowly, inevitably. When the truth could no longer be denied, she sat Samuel down at the table. "I'm with child," she said simply. He stared, then reached for her hands like he might lose them if he didn't. "We'll be all right," he said. It was not a question. That autumn, a stranger came up the road. A young woman, thin, eyes too old for her face. Her shoes were split at the seams. Evelyn saw it before anything else. The familiar wound. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Lydia," the girl whispered. "I'm looking for work, honest work." Evelyn glanced at Samuel. He nodded once. "Come inside," Evelyn said. "Let's tend your feet." That night, as the girls slept safe under their roof, Evelyn understood the shape of her own journey. It had never been meant to end with her. Winter returned, quieter this time. They were ready. The baby came in early September, strong, lunged, and impatient. A daughter. They named her Mercy. Samuel wept without shame. Evelyn held her child and thought of the platform, the blood, the man who had turned away. None of it owned her anymore. Years moved forward the way rivers do, carving, changing. The ranch grew. So did the stories told about it. People began to come on purpose. Not for land, for refuge. A place that did not measure worth by polish. Evelyn kept the shoes in a small wooden case near the hearth. Visitors sometimes noticed. She never hid the story. She told it plainly, about how shame nearly ended her, about how kindness rebuilt her, about how love arrived not with promises, but with presence. One evening, Samuel stood beside her on the porch, watching Mercy chase fireflies. "You ever wish things had gone differently?" he asked. Evelyn shook her head. "If they had," she said, "I wouldn't be here." The wind moved through the cottonwoods. The land breathed easy. Somewhere in the distance, another road waited for another soul in need. And Evelyn knew, when that moment came, she would not turn away. The years did not rush past. They settled. Life on the ranch moved at the pace of seasons, not clocks. Spring brought calves and mud. Summer brought heat and long evenings. Autumn came with gold light and honest fatigue. Winter arrived sharp, but no longer frightening. Evelyn learned that survival was not the opposite of joy. It was often the doorway to it. Mercy grew strong and curious, her laughter carrying across the fields like birdsong. She learned to walk between fence posts, learned the names of stars before she learned to write her own. Samuel taught her patience. Evelyn taught her courage. The ranch became known without ever meaning to be, not for wealth, not for size, but for safety. Travelers came, women with bruises they did not explain, men worn thin by loss, families with nowhere left to go. Evelyn never asked for stories first. She asked if they were hungry. Some stayed a night. Some stayed a season. A few stayed forever. Kindness, she learned, did not empty you. It multiplied. One autumn evening, long after Mercy had gone to sleep, Samuel joined Evelyn on the porch. The air smelled of dry grass and coming frost. "You ever think about that day?" he asked quietly. She knew which day he meant. "Sometimes," she said, "not with pain anymore, with gratitude." "For the shoes?" he asked gently. "For everything," she replied. She rose and went inside, returning with the small wooden case. She opened it carefully. Inside lay the torn shoes. Leather cracked, twine still wrapped tight. "They carried me here," she said. "They broke so I wouldn't have to." Samuel touched the edge of the case, reverent. "You could have turned bitter," he said. "You didn't." Evelyn looked out across the land they had built together. "I learned that bitterness would have kept me alive," she said. "But it wouldn't have let me live." The following spring, Mercy stood on the platform at Redfield Station, clutching Evelyn's hand. A train arrived in a cloud of steam and dust. A young woman stepped down. Thin, frightened. Her shoes were torn. Evelyn felt the familiar tightening in her chest. Memory. Recognition. She stepped forward before anyone else could. "You look like you've come a long way," Evelyn said softly. The woman nodded, tears spilling. "Come with me," Evelyn continued. "We'll take care of your feet." Samuel watched from a distance, pride quiet and deep. The circle closed and opened again. Years later, when Mercy asked about the shoes in the wooden case, Evelyn knelt and told her the truth. About hunger, about shame, about walking anyway. She told her that love did not always arrive the way we expect. Sometimes it arrived dressed like work, like patience, like a hand offered without conditions. "And remember this," Evelyn said, pressing her daughter's small fingers over the cracked leather. "Broken things still have purpose, especially people." Mercy nodded solemnly, as if receiving something sacred. On a quiet evening, long after the house had settled, and the land lay peaceful under the stars, Samuel and Evelyn sat together by the fire. I wouldn't change a single mile, Evelyn said softly. Samuel smiled. Neither would I. Outside, the prairie breathed. Inside, the fire burned low and steady. A woman who once arrived with nothing but torn shoes had built a life that endured. Not because the world became kind, but because she chose to be.